has two definitions, and I mean, you're gonna have to get used to definitions. There's like 3 of them in this presentation. So the first one's right here. The ideals of freedom, equality, and opportunity traditionally held to be available to every American. Now, this is the true definition. When it was written in our Constitution, this is what the American dream meant. So it's kind of like the basis for our country, and I think that we're really losing that because this new definition, a life of personal happiness and material comfort, as traditionally sought by individuals in the U.S., is sort of destroying what we should be really caring about. We stop caring about what we have passion for, and we start thinking more about what we can do to get more money, what jobs we'll have, what we can, I don't know, what clothes we wear, what car we drive, that sort of thing. And I think that's really not a healthy thing to do for ourselves and for everybody around us. So we live in a wealthy community. Forest Hill Central is a pretty wealthy community, and it's kind of uncomfortable to think about, but it's important if you want to take away anything from this presentation. And this wealth is sometimes not really accepted by people, and it's causing a lot of materialism in our community as well as just in our society as a whole. So materialism, last definition, is a preoccupation with or emphasis on material objects, comforts, and considerations with a disinterest in or rejection of spiritual, intellectual, or cultural values. Now, this is pretty broad, and there are a couple more values that I think are even more important than those. I mean, those are huge, but also a couple other values are work ethic. Many people, especially my peers, are losing work ethic just because they care more about the social aspects of school, which definitely isn't bad. I think that there should be a healthy balance between social and academic, and a lot of times that balance isn't really true or healthy for everybody here. Another thing is relationships. Our relationships are kind of being hurt by this because when we care more about money than we do about the other person, we're going to only have shallow and weak relationships that don't really go anywhere. And I think this can really hurt us because if we're not building relationships now in our high school years, we might not even have them later on in life. Third, and probably most importantly, is our social impact. Now, our social impact is what we'll be remembered for when we're dead or gone to a different place. So I think that see people laughing. That's kind of weird. But all right. So where was I? Social impact is kind of what we'll be remembered for, and this is really important because we don't want to be remembered as, oh, you're that guy who had a lot of money. That's not what you want to be remembered for. You want to be remembered as the person that had an impact on your community, the person who changed things, the person who helped others. Fourth is free choice. We've started to make decisions, like I said earlier, based on what job we want, where we want to go to college, solely based on what money we'll make from it. I want to be a doctor because I'll make 6 figures. Why be a doctor and be unhappy with your life when you could do something else and actually enjoy living and have a meaning in your life? And I think that it's really impacting us deeply. Materialism is kind of rampant in social media right now, especially with celebrities and their luxurious lives. It can cause a lot of jealousy, which leads to self-consciousness, and this is really unhealthy. So I mean, it's happened to, I'm sure, many of us here. Honestly, who wouldn't be at least a little bit jealous? People are driving around in $1 million sports cars. I'm jealous all the time. But I think that social media has a lot of benefits, and they can be healthily balanced as well, just like our relationships can and other things. So I'm going to finish up my third point with a little story about somebody who may or may not be in the room right now. So they were doing their WebWorks and were approached by a couple students in their class to do their WebWorks for them, because nobody likes WebWorks. So he was like, yeah, sure. I mean, obviously there's going to be a charge. So he started charging $1 per question, and in just over an hour, a bit over an hour, maybe up to 2. He made about $50. Like, that's an outrageous amount of money to make in just over an hour. So this is kind of this leads into my next point, which is that my peers, and many adults too, are losing the value of money. It's mainly in my peers, and I think that this should definitely change. Because we're relying on our parents for money more than we are relying on ourselves. This lack of self-reliance is causing us to kind of we're going to definitely need self-reliance when we move on through high school and into college, or even when we just get a car, when we get a job, that sort of thing. We're going to need this self-reliance. So in the past 20 years, there's been a 20% drop in 16 to 19-year-old employment. And that just really goes to show and drives home this point that people are really starting to rely less on themselves and more on others for what they have and what they can gain. So many of you who are in regular history, we're just doing the Lyndon B. Johnson and the Great Society. And I read a quote in the book that he said, and it really struck home with me. He described the society as a place where a man is not defined by the quantity of his goods, but by the quality of his character. So I think that this is really a perfect description of what our country should be and what we should make it into. And that's one of the baseline principles that made him one of the most successful presidents in our country's history. So I leave you with this. Our American dream, as we know it, is flawed. And it's not what our country's founding fathers meant it to be. And I hope that together we can change that.